The Starr and D'Amico Show, brought to you by cheapesttshirts.ca. Need blanks for your next event or club? Check out cheapesttshirts.ca. No minimum order, free shipping over $350. Same-day shipping on lots of items. Affordable, Canadian, ready to print your design. Brought to you by Catherine Prince at Remax Platine, your Montreal real estate connection. Call her at 514-702-2474 or email Catherine with a K, Catherine at catherineprince.com. If you're looking to buy, sell, or invest with confidence, Catherine Prince, your key to the city's property market. Brought to you by McLean's Pub. Looking for a lively downtown spot with great food and atmosphere? Come to McLean's Pub on Peel Street. Classic pub eats, plenty of beer, and all the sports on all the screens. Grab your friends and make McLean's your go-to place tonight. Brought to you by Cabletel, your full-service telecom partner for business and home. From structured cabling and phone systems to Wi-Fi, cameras, and alarms, Cabletel keeps you connected, secure, and performing at your best. Your partner for the future. It's Cabletel. Man, it was a fun week last week when we talked about Mike Matheson signing for 5 years at $30 million, leaving a lot of money on the table. You can leave a lot of money in your pocket by shopping for your furry pal, your furry family member at Little Bear, at littlebearonline.com with delivery, curbside pickup, the in-house shopping experience with great expert advice without pushing an agenda, without pushing a product. Chuck and Evie and their staff at Little Bear on St. Catherine across from Westmount Square. Marco, care about your pet as much as you do, and a loyal partner for the Starr and D'Amico show. Mike Matheson showed some loyalty, re-upping with the Montreal Canadiens, but these are, as you put it last week, these are good problems to have. Marco, they don't have enough chairs for all the bodies. Let's talk about who are the Montreal Canadiens potentially looking at in terms of not a sacrificial lamb, a sacrificial D, because you've got some reporting out through RG and RG.org, where you cover the Montreal Canadiens with that outlet on Kaden Guhle. Kaden Guhle's name was swirling around last week. Let's cast a light on some of that speculation right here, Marco.
Yeah, so a lot of that information is coming from outside the Montreal Canadiens organization. Basically, what we're hearing is teams are asking about Kaiden Guhle. The Canadiens are not having it. The Canadiens are very much view Kaiden Guhle as part of the future until seen otherwise. He's not being shopped in any way, shape, or form. This
Good.
doesn't mean that they view him as the odd man out. Quite the opposite. They view his skill set as being rather unique amongst the Canadiens defensive brigade. You combine that speed, that physicality, the fact that all of his injuries seem to be freak individual injuries and not structural doesn't worry the Canadiens. So Kaiden Guhle, not on the block from what we're being told right now. It's someone that I could see moved in a big trade for a 2C, but none of that is available, and the Canadiens aren't looking to make that move. They would prefer to use other assets to go and get that. And by prefer, I mean significantly prefer to do so.
We've spoken about this before, and RDS's Mark Denis, who's one of the best in the business. The one consistent thing, someone like Mark Denis has told me over the years is that when he's on the
Mhm.
road with the team and he speaks to other coaches from the opposition, more often than not, the one player they keep asking about in a good way, not as the on the block way, is Kaden Guhle. And you just referenced there, he has a unique skill set that not a lot of guys on this current roster bring to the table. And I guess we can elaborate on that for a second here, right? I mean, he brings hockey IQ, he brings physicality, he brings leadership. And while other guys, you can point your finger at a Xhekaj or a Struble, that they bring the physicality and they have that in their toolbox. Maybe their toolbox, in contrast to Guhle's, isn't as deep.
I mean, Guhle was a top pick in the 2020 draft. Like he went 16th overall. Some felt he slid. I know the
Mm.
Canadiens had him in their top 10 on their list in that draft, and I know a couple of other teams did too. Um, it's just a rare skill set. He has the ability to defend off the rush in a way that I don't feel any other defenseman other than Mike Matheson can.
Right.
So if you're going to want to match up against the Colorado Avalanche, for example, that's a player that they missed is Kaiden Guhle, because that's a guy that can keep up with the Nate McKinnons. That's a guy that won't get turnstile by a Martin Nietzsche's on the rush, right? This is a guy who has the skating ability and the physicality to either match up speed for speed or to box guys out physically and get the puck out quickly. So they miss him dearly on that top four right now. And that's why they're overusing a guy like Alex Carrier. And unfortunately, it kind of leaves him a little exposed on certain plays. So no, they are more than willing to be patient and wait for a guy like Kaden Guhle to come back in January or early February to the lineup. And believe you me, not in the world where they want to consider moving him at this time. So you'd be looking more so at some of the younger pieces on the Canadiens blue line. So Arber Xhekaj, Jayden Struble, Adam Engstrom. Those are the guys that could potentially be of interest to teams across the league that the Canadiens would consider moving, because championship teams have a set top four, right? And then you kind of have your bottom pair that is mostly role players. The Canadiens feel that they have their top four kind of set. They have other options coming in Reinbacher and Adam Engstrom. And now they have to make a decision because waivers also factors in on this. And they want to be able to make the right choice so that they don't have too much of the same.
So which Montreal Canadian defenseman is the odd man out? And I believe that player to be, and only speculating here as we're having this conversation, is Jayden Struble. And my reasoning for looking at Jayden Struble is, and I don't mean this in a disrespectful way, it's just we're talking hockey, we're talking players, we're talking value. I see Jayden Struble play. He plays decently when he's paired with Lane Hutson. I think the coaching staff, in my opinion, I think trusts him more situationally than they do someone like Arber Xhekaj. And I think to a man, I think Jayden Struble is right now a better defender in his own end than Arber Xhekaj. So in terms of Marco getting a return on a hypothetical transaction is what we're doing here. We're speaking in hypotheticals about Jayden Struble. Where is Struble ahead of? And I haven't seen enough of Engstrom, right? So I'm deliberately leaving Engstrom out of this conversation. And the potential is there, but just guys that we see on the regular, right? How does Struble, in your opinion, stack up 1v1 versus someone like Arber Xhekaj in terms of perhaps how you think other general managers view those two guys on the Canadiens?
When you look at Arber Xhekaj, you see the physicality. You obviously see the fisticuffs as well, the ability to fight, defend players, the energy that he has. The Canadiens are trying him on the penalty kill as well, so clearly there's an indication they'd like to give him more responsibility and find ways to get him more ice time. I just don't feel like with the Canadiens, I don't feel like Jayden Struble has a role. And I think that's when you're not when you're a bottom pair defenseman and you don't have a role, it's rough, right? Because you're the odd man out if someone has to get flipped out of the lineup. Although they did keep him with Lane Hutson and they took out Arber Xhekaj to bring in Adam Engstrom against Utah. But I think when you look at the way that the Canadiens play, I feel like Jayden Struble is good at many things, but does not excel at all of them. I think
Right.
I was watching. It was a rare time where I was actually watching a game, but I think it was Pierre Hood that seemed like amazed at the fact that Jayden Struble was joining the rush offensively for the Canadiens the other night, and he had like made the observation like, oh, Jayden Struble's joining the rush, as if he was surprised. And I
Right.
think that's the thing. A guy with that mobility, you would want to see involved a little bit more physically, but a little bit more consistently. But then you also want to see him be more physical and defensive end. He does both well, but he doesn't do it consistently enough to have carved out his role. And I don't think that that's a problem necessarily to him. I think it's also a problem with the Canadiens in general in terms of what they need in their defensive structure and what they're asking him to do. I think you put him on a team you put him on a team like Boston, you put him on a team like, the Calgary Flames, you put him on a team like, any team basically looking to get younger on the left side. And I think that he would have more opportunity. But because the Canadiens have a set top three, Kaiden Guhle's spot is basically being held by Alex Carrier on special teams. And then Arber Xhekaj is such a different, unique player compared to the other the other four that I just mentioned.
Yeah.
Well, it makes him look like the odd man out. And I get it, because Struble has good value across the league. Like I'm not gonna. This may
Yeah.
surprise people, but Jayden Struble is well regarded. The Canadiens' defensive brigade in general is well regarded in terms of the potential that's there and the amount of high value assets that they have. So all this does is it gives the Canadians options, right? And it's always a cost evaluation, right? So it's not who's the odd man out, but which trade makes the most sense.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the debate, right? Because there are some general managers that value Adam Engstrom more than Arber Xhekaj. But there are some general managers that value Arber Xhekaj more than Adam Engstrom. I haven't had enough of a return yet to see if there are enough general managers that value Jayden Struble over the two that I just mentioned. So sometimes it's not who's the odd man out so much as what is the best cost value deal that you can make. Like if a general manager views Adam Engstrom as an A prospect and you're trying to go and get a legitimate piece and you're trying to convince them to take Jayden Struble and the answer is no,
Yeah.
well, like, are you willing to live with the fact that you'd be letting go of a guy like Engstrom and keeping Jayden Struble more as a 7th D or a 6th D in this situation while you're waiting for David Reinbacher to eventually take that role? Like that's why I'm saying there's a lot of moving pieces. And I haven't even brought up a guy like Bryce Pickford, who's playing
Right.
fantastic in the WHL. So the
Mm-hmm.
Canadians have depth on defense and they have the flexibility to be able to make calls like this. You just got to be careful that you're not jumping to a conclusion to make a trade. And I don't, from what I've been told, the Canadians are not jumping to make a trade. They're very much methodically looking at the market and trying to see what they can go and get, who could potentially be available, and when that time comes, they'll be able to look at their excess assets and they're going to be able to make a move.
I mean, to me, that's smart business. It's not like anyone's
Yeah.
play to me right now is like, okay, they're forcing their way into the conversation, forcing Kent Hughes to do something perhaps he wasn't ready to do. But if I go back to, when you were breaking down my question around Jayden Struble, right? And then you quote Pierre Hood, oh, look at Struble. Oh, wow, joining the rush. You know, outside of dropping the gloves and handling his business, I don't know what Arber Xhekaj's identity is. Like, he doesn't join the rush. He doesn't fire a lot of pucks on net. He doesn't play on the power play. I don't think he moves the
Yeah.
puck out of the defensive zone compared to
I
Jayden
will
Struble 1v1 as good, right? Like, if they're going to move
I'll
him,
say
it's
this.
it's going to be on reputation. It's going to be on reputation.
Yeah,
I
it's a
think he's the odd
100%.
man out, personally. I do.
But I will say that the Canadians of late doing him no favors playing with Alex Carey. I don't think Alex Carey
Yeah,
is
but
playing good hockey,
you
and that
could
kind of
argue Alex
exposes.
Carrier has been carrying Xhekaj. You could argue that Alex Carrier was Markov Commissaric style, to give you a
I
comparable
can't
about
argue.
one guy carrying
In
another guy.
last year, okay, I give it to you. Last year, okay.
And
This
for
year, absolutely.
You
This year,
don't think so?
absolutely not. Absolutely not.
I mean, Carrier
Absolutely
hasn't been
not.
playing well, but for the first part of the season, I see
I
it
think I
differently.
can count. I think I can count on my hand, maybe like 2 or 3 games where I looked at Arber Xhekaj and I was like, not his game, not happening. But I think I can count on my one hand, like on 2 hands this month, how many times I've looked at Alex Carey play at 5-on-5 and think, like for example, the I believe the first goal against Colorado, like Arber Xhekaj gets clipped, his skate
Correct.
gets clipped, right?
Yes,
Like
he falls down.
I don't think, and exactly, and then
Yeah,
then there was the coverage issue, you
correct. I
know, and
agree.
and
I
it's
agree.
and it's been reads like that have put Alex Carey out of position, but also kind of exposed in consequence Arber Xhekaj, and so his stats in terms of like chances for, chances against, caved every time. But when you put him the shifts that you put him with Lane Hudson, the numbers are
Yeah,
fine. They're perfect. So that leads me to believe that if you were to isolate Arber Xhekaj's play and put him with a steady presence, an actual steady presence on the back end, you'd have better results. Unfortunately, you don't. And that's why, sometimes I feel like it's almost the same thing for Lane Hudson. He has to chase the play a lot of the times because of a weird decision made by Jayden Struble or a miscue defensively or bad positioning. And he has to come, like sometimes you see Lane Hudson just darting down the ice, skating like a water bug, trying
yeah.
to make up space and time because an improper positioning or a bad pinch, right? And oftentimes I find that Jayden Struble isn't optimally placed to play those odd man rushes, and then it exposes them to goals like we saw over the past week. So I don't necessarily think that Arber Xhekaj has aided in his utilization. I think that between Struble, him, and Carey, I think the three of them have struggled of late to find some footing. What I would say is, I think that many teams would be able to better surround Arber Xhekaj than the Canadiens are doing right now. And that's my only concern about moving an Arber Xhekaj, because if he can get a level of comfortability and trust from the coaching staff on a regular basis, because to me, you want a guy on your bottom pair. Eventually, say for example, the Canadiens don't renew the contract for Alex Carrier, and you try to slot in an Adam Engstrom or a David Reinbacher. Well, then I think those two guys would play well with an Arber Xhekaj, because then the roles are very defined for one player or the other. If it's Reinbacher, then stay back. Reinbacher comes in as a rover. If it's Engstrom, Engstrom's going up and down the ice, right? Up and down the ice with speed. So, Arber Xhekaj knows what his role is. Hold down the center of the ice, be physical, box guys out. Whereas right now, like, Alex Carrier is kind of seen as a defensive defenseman, but doesn't have the build to be able to do the things that a defensive defenseman on a bottom pair should be doing. And it leads to situations with Arber Xhekaj where he's left a little exposed. So on one end, the issue with Arber Xhekaj last season and the seasons prior was discipline. I don't think that's an issue this season. In fact, I would say that
not anymore.
I think Struble's been the undisciplined one between the two. Then it was spatial awareness and timing. I thought he's gotten a lot better at that, but it's almost like the pairing gets discombobulated when there's too much happening in the offensive zone. So what do you look for? You look at habits. You look at who gets caught the most. And of late, I'm really sorry, it's Alex Carrier. So I don't have the low opinion that some fans have of Arber Xhekaj, just like I don't have him up here like some fans do. I have a more of a tempered approach in terms of what I see. But I think unless you're getting A+ value for him, I don't think there's a point in trading Arber Xhekaj right now. I think trading a Jayden Struble, I don't know where Jayden Struble's ceiling will ultimately get, but I think that you have enough players that have defined roles in your system where sacrificing a guy like Struble to go and get a forward asset that you desperately need, I think makes a ton of sense. I think it makes a lot of sense. He would be the most logical one for me. But if a team comes knocking with a top 6 center and they ask for Arber Xhekaj as the key piece on defense, you're the Montreal Canadiens. This is the thing I've always said. Bottom pair physical defensemen, you could pick those up at the trade deadline for second and third round picks. We see it every year. Top 6 centers,
no, forget about it.
Only in PlayStation trades can you get a top 6 center. I remember.
You want a loyalty, go get a Doug. And that's Alex Carrier, on average probably plays like 9 to 10 minutes more per game, right? And a lot of it is situational. Alex Carrier on a bad night, in terms of lack of discipline, is going to get like 6 minutes shorthanded in terms of how many minutes he's out there for, right?
Yeah.
And it's funny too because speaking to some people, around the National Hockey League, like TSN Hockey Insider Darren Dreger, he's told me in the past that in the hypothetical world where Arber Xhekaj is dangled by Habs management, you're going to have the entire league lining up to call Kent Hughes and say, okay, what do you want?
Yeah.
Let's talk. I mean, the appeal, I guess, maybe to your point, right? Because when I'm listening to you break down Xhekaj's game, I'll be honest, what goes through my mind as I'm listening to you talk about him? I'm like, Marco sees something that I don't believe Martin St. Louis sees. The way you talk about the way you talk about potential,
it's very possible.
To me, I don't think today, I think it's a working relationship. I don't think today that the Montreal Canadiens fully trust Arber Xhekaj's decision-making in his own end. And I think it's a work in progress.
But I don't think they trust Demidov's decision in his own end. Right? Like Martin St. Louis, if you really want to open up that can of worms, I think Martin St. Louis, like his predecessor, his mentor, leans way too heavily on his veterans. Way too heavily, and more so than ever before. right? And I think that's my kind of issue. Against the Colorado Avalanche, Alex Carey played 22 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah. And
What are
over
we
6
doing here?
shorthanded.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What are
Yeah.
we doing here? You're losing 6-2. Funnel in some of the younger guys to get some minutes in, to get some reps in. The
That's
game's
a good
already
point.
lost.
That's a good point.
What are you doing? So that's kind of where I'm at here. That's kind of where my point is. It's like on one end, the Canadians have a set up top three, and then Alex Carey is filling in for the loss of Kaiden Guhle. We've
Yeah.
established this. But buddy, like, is Alex Carey a long-term solution on the right side as a bottom pair defenseman? I don't think so. I like him. I think he's a great guy. I think he's a solid teammate. But if you're going to compete for the Stanley Cup, I don't know that your bottom pair right shot defenseman
Yeah, I agree.
can be that build.
But he
I
was the
like
right player
him.
at the right time. He filled the he filled
Absolutely.
yeah,
Absolutely. They were beggars can't be choosers where the Canadians were last year. They got a good deal, in my
100%.
opinion, because
Yeah.
Justin Barron is a scratch on the worst team in the NHL
Yeah.
right now. So
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
think that anybody's regretting that deal. What I will say is that the Canadians are counting that when his deal comes to expiry, that David Reinbacher would eventually come in and take those minutes to start in his career. And I think that's where I'm at. So if that's the vision, who do you best want playing with David Reinbacher when he kicks in? Do you want Arber Xhekaj? Do you want Jayden Struble? Do you want Alex Carrier pushing David Reinbacher to the other side? Do you want to reunite the top pair in Laval that was David Reinbacher and Adam Engstrom? You know, like that is the puzzle piecing that Kent Hughes and Jeff Gordon have to go through. And honestly, I think that part of it will be internal evaluation.
Yeah.
And the other part of it is going to be, what does the market think of these players? And I will tell you this. There are a lot of general managers that value Arber Xhekaj a lot still. Feel like he's underutilized in Montreal. There are a lot of teams that like Adam Engstrom, and I think that the performances over the last 2 games haven't done anything to hurt his value. So
Agreed.
between those 2 guys, I think you're good. I think you already know you got value there. But I could tell you that Jayden Struble playing with Lane Hudson on a top 4 kind of role, I think that that's also positioning him well in case they ever do want to utilize him in a trade. So they have options. It's good. But I could tell you one thing, Kaden Guhle is not one of them, at least as of now, from what I'm being told.
And that's great news, in my opinion. Marco D'Amico, read the latest as we talk about, he writes about Kaden Guhle with some of the speculation around that young defenseman and his name circulating last week and throwing some water onto onto those embers, I suppose. Read the latest at rg.org. Follow Marco at MN D'Amico, and of course, like and subscribe to the Starr and D'Amico Show right here on YouTube and where all your favorite audio podcasts can be found. A big shout out to all of our sponsors from cheapesttshirts.ca. McLean's Pub is where we're going to be on December 23rd. Catherine Prince from Remax Platine, buying or selling your house. Reach out to her. And the best in home alarm security with Cabletel, cabletel.com, servicing Quebec and Eastern Ontario for 20 years. A nice family-owned business and a proud sponsor of the show. Marco, thanks as always. We'll see you. We've got some lives to do this week as the Montreal Canadiens are back home, and we'll see you live on youtube.com in the not-too-distant future. Thanks, man.
Have a good one, everybody.